Hey guys, so last section that we were going to cover in chapter 10. Yay. Okay, so this section is on radical equations, and so that's basically just equations with square roots in them. So I have actually picked 4 examples to work for you, and we are going to be in the exercises on page 626, and I'm going to start with number 2. Okay, so number 2, as you can see, is the square root of 10h plus 1 equals 21. Okay, so what you're going to want to do on these equations with square roots, you're going to want to get the square root by itself first. So notice on this one, the first thing I did is I subtracted over the 1, okay? That gave me the square root of 10h equals 20. Okay, so I had the square root of 10h equals 20. So what I did to get rid of the square root, I squared both sides of the equation. If you square something that already has a square root on it, those are inverses of each other, and it just basically undoes it. So the square root of something squared is just itself. So that gets rid of the square root. And then, of course, 20 squared is 400. And you can type that in your calculator if you need to. And then, just divide by 10, and you get h equals 40. And that's all you do. So just isolate the radical, get it by itself. And when you finally get the square root by itself, square both sides. Okay? All right, the next one I'm going to work is number 7, still on the same page. Number 7 is the square root of a minus 2 plus 4 equals a. Okay, so the first thing I did is I subtracted over my 4. So that, cancels here, and I just brought down a minus 4. Obviously, you can't literally subtract a minus 4, but I just wrote it as a minus 4. Okay, so same thing. I squared both sides of my equation. The square root of a minus 2 squared is just a minus 2. Okay. Now, a minus 4 squared, a lot of people are tempted to just put a squared minus 16, but you cannot do that. A minus 4 squared, that's actually a minus 4 times a minus 4, and you have to full that out. So minus 4a plus 16, and so forth. The minus 4a gives you negative 8a in the middle. So you end up with a squared minus 8a plus 16 when you full that out. So be careful there. Okay, now remember from our what we learned in chapter 7 or 8, I can't remember, but when we did, it was at chapter 8, when you're factoring something that's squared, you have to set it equal to 0 first. So I actually subtracted over the a and added over the 2 on purpose so that I could have a 0 over here. So that got rid of those 2. Bring down your a squared. Negative 8 minus a is negative 9a. 16 and 2 is 18. Okay? Then I had to factor, 6 times 3 is 18. 6 plus 3 is 9. I had to factor that, set my parentheses equal to 0, and I ended up getting 6 and 3 for my 2 answers. Now, something to take note of with square roots. Just because you get an answer does not mean that it works. What we're going to do, we're going to plug in 6 and 3 into the original problem. So I'm going to start with 6. I'm going to do the square root of 6 minus 2 plus 4 equals 6. Okay, does this work? Let's see. The square root of 6 minus 2 is the square root of 4, which is 2. Is 2 plus 4 6? Yes. Okay, so a equals 6 is definitely one of my answers. Okay, but watch what happens when I plug in 3. The square root of 3 minus 2 plus 4 equals 3. Does that work? Well, the square root of 3 minus 2 is the square root of 1. The square root of 1 is just 1. 1 plus 4 actually does not equal 3. So that answer, a equals 3, was not one of my solutions. So you have to be really careful with square roots. You absolutely have to check your answers. Okay? All right, I'm going to do 2 more, but I'm going to do those in the next video.